And a little bit of testing today before I jump right into things. So here goes the test. I can hit a hotkey or bind it over to the mouse. That happens. That happens, it will write out new video file. Okay, I haven't done it. So writes out a video file. And with VLC. Able to hear a little bit of testing today. Yep. And have to switch scenes. Studio mode. Here I can play forward, or I jump right into things frame by frame. Action. I don't know how to take a step back, so eventually I'll have to get good with this. Backward. This is highly imprecise. It's 10 seconds. So probably won't have to, probably try to keep away from that. But it looks alright, cool. So today, more data. Look at all the lifts. Pick all the nits. Hello world. It's Wednesday, February the 21st, 2018. I weighed in today at 141.4 pounds. Today I'll be squatting 265. Need to pass it today. Followed by bench, deloaded down to 170. Then going on to pull-ups, starting at 32.5 pounds of added weight. I'll be trying out some new things today. Talked about the need to get rapid feedback, instantaneous feedback. To that end, set up the replay buffer. Yes. Should be able to watch back over lifts after they happen. So things are getting a little complicated. So first test. see this. This is a problem. Right away, this is an issue. Should be able to watch back over lifts after they happen. I'll be able to designate 2 points. Here I can watch things like bar path, see how the knees are tracking to toes. Kind of want to bring this camera out a little further to the right so that it's looking at a straight side view. So I can step between these 2 points. Frame by frame. A real trick with it. Now if there's a way to step backwards, a single frame, that'd be cool. So, I suppose I'll figure this out. I don't know it yet. Okay, neat. Roll. Hop back to it. I'm hoping that doing these short recordings, and also, yeah, I'm just thinking, it's not a good idea to write it out to the same drive that I'm recording I'm making the rest of the local recording to. It's too taxing on the drive, it could be bad. So, I have to play around with it a bit. Fortunately, I have 3 drives in that thing. For now, I'm tempted to just roll with it. If there are any problems, adjust them next time. But, at the same time, is that better safe than sorry? See if I can do things a little differently. I'm not sure if OBS will allow me to do it. Take a look. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't let me do it. I know some folks run 2 copies of OBS. I'm hoping I don't have to do that. Guess I'll need to see how other people are implementing this type of system. Turn on the fan. Some airflow going. Continue. See. Put it here. Turn on the fan. On the fan. It's clumsy. Continue. It's clunky, but might work okay. It's kind of neat. Maybe not for everybody, but it's good for me. So things I want to look into here. Positioning. I don't know how wide I should go. I was looking at powerlifting to win, and it was talking about moment arms. How larger width effectively shortens this distance, brings the moment arm, makes it shorter. So I can understand how the leverages play. Plus, over here, and check the replay. This is fun. Oh, so I can. This is annoying. Again. I'm gonna wear out my mouse like this. Interesting. Very interesting. Curious now to see if it all breaks down here. Because this weight has been a stumbling block for me. Houston, drainage issues on the news. Okay, heart rate's where I want it to be. 265, set 1. Fuck. This freaks me out. But instant feedback. See how shitty it looked. Slower. Fucking A. Alright. Transition back. Okay, heart rate's where I want it to be. 265, set 1. I really do want to change this camera angle. It's easier to see exactly where this bar is. Here, it looks like it moves forward considerably. This freaks me out. Balance. Tricks on me. That's way out here. Or way over here. Fuck. Okay. That sucks. Count 4. Knock this down a peg. Bring it back up. Try again. It's what I prefer too. More relaxing this way. Well, thank you, Blacks. Things that shouldn't be. I don't think. I know I'm not doing some things right here. Maybe I can get an extension for USB so I can bring this camera up further this way. I know it's really far from where I want it. In order to see things more objectively. Failed. Okay, time's up. Plenty of time has passed. Try again. Kind of want to go wider. But it's hard. I feel like it's really hard to hit depth going really wide. Be just a little outside of shoulders, I think. Listen to me like I know what I'm talking about. Fucking weak, man. Fuck. Fuck. That's so frustrating. Jesus. Fail. So hard. Let me watch myself fail. Right here. I feel like it's really hard. Really wide. Actually, let me see this. It's hard. I can hit depth going that wide. Depth going really wide. Be just a little outside of shoulders, I think. Listen to me like I know what I'm talking about. Everything. Why? Falling back now. Cool. How does one even interpret this? Fail. Fail forward. Like, keep failing, eventually they'll succeed, right? It's pretty demoralizing. I'm gonna treat it for what it is. It's more data. Fuck. Fuck, dude. Shit. Not a single success today. That's demoralizing. More data. This week's awesomeness. feel like fuck exhaust. Before I even step out with it. Right here. Setup. I think I can do more. Just through here. Magnets. It's a word that people in this community like. Fuck. That. My weight shifted all the way back there first. Am I always doing that? It's heavy? This one I just gave up. Around here. This. Shifting back for a good third of a second. I don't know what this needs. If I knew, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be stuck here. It's been a good exercise, I suppose. I'd love to keep on failing on this one movement, but I have more data to collect. And I started this day very late. Fail City. Start looking at all the data. Does this indicate I could go wider? What suggested that I try going wider? Otherwise, I think that looks fine. Let's try going a little wider. I'm trying to. Kung Fu Robber. Trying to take better care of myself. This is me finally trying to make sense of what I've been doing here for so long. I need to look into the keyboard shortcuts in order to drive VLC better. Comes to this frame by frame. Oh. So confused. Tried widening the grip just a little bit. I thought it would make an impact. This angle. Seeing here. The path is kind of diagonal. Yeah. DLC is a good choice. I need to learn its keyboard shortcuts. That way I don't wear out my mouse button. Just clicking. Raining again. Go even wider and see what effect. Testing it. Everything else held. Whoops. I went higher than I was supposed to today. That's good. More challenging. More data. Go even wider and see what effect. Testing it. Everything. I thought I was just feeling exceedingly weak. It's really interesting. The flicker from LED? Where's that? This looks to be centered fairly well. This is not. So that's my right, camera left, lower. Set up poorly. Similar. Diagonal. Nice. Not sure if you're still there, but I hope it's a good movie. Hope it's entertaining at least. $135. go into the working stuff. It's supposed to be 170. $565. $170. In a dream last night, I shaved off what little facial hair I have. Synopsis of Black Panther. It's Wednesday. Midweek. Curious, how are you getting to watch this movie today? We'll jump right into it. I still feeling indeterminate on this grip width. Test it again. Sure, I don't. Actually, we'll start with this extreme. Middle finger here. I don't think my legs are doing much to help. Can't tell. Make this transition. Bring this into VLC. See what it does. This is at the really wide grip width. It's too wide. Thing gets brought so far back. Compare against, say, hey, interesting. I dreamt that you did it. Not even noting anything. Let's do this. 2, 3, 5. Reset 2. By doing it at the grip width that I'm figure is standard. Fuck. Grab my knuckles. Good set. How often do you go now? This. Let's get super trick. I'm gonna start taking screenshots now. Thanks. Don't save my screenshot. Dropbox. I can do this too, right? Snapshot. And compare directly against, say, the previous one. Oh, 8:09 p.m. Yeah. So, EU. I wonder, I thought it was still midday. Well, not midday, but early afternoon for you. The real fucked up part. Just looking at these two images, I show this. I really can't tell. There's just so little difference. Just my eyes. This app called. This is Windows 10 Photos. AE. Right. Call it a game capture. Let's test this specific window. Alright. Let me do it. Fuck it. Fuck it all. I can shorten these considerably. Slowed things down here. Still don't know what to think. But now there's more data. Or the same data is on repeat. All over it for a while. Hey Paul. Hey kid. How you doing? Yum yum. Doing okay? How's it going? Claws are pretty sharp. I don't know if you knew that. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe we'll file them down a bit. Yorkie. His name is Paul. Paul the Yorkie. Now 7 years old. Checking in, but not much going on here. No, just failed the squats. Collected data. Just collecting data today. Hey, mulling it over. Oh yeah. Good. A good dog. This morning we were out just taking a walk and the sky opened up. Got rained on. I think that chilled them out a little bit. Birds came back home and toweled them off. Used a hair dryer on them. First dog I've raised from pup to adult. It's been a growth experience. Okay. Don't anticipate failing. Bench. Not at this weight. It's more. Oh yeah. First thing. Push this button. This is all. This is what's new. It's been I don't anticipate failing. Data. Trying to get more of it. Always the same. Alright, data. Geez. Let's find out. Kilograms. This is not a lot. I was failing at 190, 77.18 kilos. I was failing at 86.26 kilos. I dropped it. Had enough of failing. Trying to review more. Grow faster. Nice. Nice, man. Are you deadlifting conventional or sumo? This or this wide setup? Not sumo. Okay. Right on. You're a little ahead of me now. I feel like I've been getting stuck here. So I'm trying to do more. Not necessarily more while I'm here, but make the most out of this time. That's good. Recover faster. Teen. And I got 10 years on you. Hope you finished your lap dog. Doctor to listen and tell us if it's bad. This has not been getting smaller, it's only been growing. Hard lump. Smooth. Hard lump. Another one somewhere. Come on. Shit again. Fun. Shit again. You want this way I gotta see too. Otherwise I never watch. And I don't know if I'm doing it right. Anything right. Okay. I don't know. Still the same weights? Yeah. Still the same. That's why I'm trying to review more. It's frustrating to me. Oh, I mean, still weigh about the same too. I think it's. I know that there are probably things I can do better as far as technique. Like right now, okay, it may be helpful to take a look, do a review after every set. Be able to watch it back. What I'm finding is my eye is not quite experienced enough to really tell what's going wrong. So it's just data. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's gibberish. So what's the way up? G. Suppose so. But the curves. I think once you know that what the axis, each axis means, then everything's pretty easy with reading those. It's all input versus output. I count 8. Not smart, man. Just a poor, slow-moving man. Just trying to get a little better at what he does. This thing I don't even really... Just curious more than anything else. So there may be something to be gained from watching it. Maybe not. I think really it's like input and output. They're two drastically different ones. No. I just play around with them. There's very little that's scientific about it. Just used what was out there. Experimented. Found things that I thought were pretty nice. Figured there would be some value in sharing with other people. Okay, so interpreting the curves. There's this 45-degree line. Right, and I think that what you have here, x-axis is your input, and y-axis is your output. So if the curve is drawn such that it's got... Actually, what, in the quick start guide it even tells you about this. It's like bowed out, or like this. Then it's like you're dampening the output. So normally, with the smart translator it would move 1 to 1, but with a curve that looks like this, your movement is going to be interpreted or fed back into the game as being less the actual movement. So that would be something to say, leverage aim assist. If you wanted to fight it, then you would have something that, like at the start, maybe boosted, and at some point more or less meets this 1-to-1 line again, the 45-degree line. Yeah, but that one's, they talk about it right in the quick start guide. Okay. Let me just get through today. Count 6. How much can I bench? I was stalling out at 190. Came close to hitting 5 sets of 5 at least once, or not. I don't even know. Yeah, it came close. And just failed. Failed some more. Mom's cooking and Huel. Most days. But I'll be cooking for myself a little bit too. It's not a great diet. There's always room for improvement. Wow. Thing greened up really nicely. Chicken, rice, and broccoli? No. I mean, there's usually rice, there's some protein, there's vegetables. So, I mean, it's similar, but it's nothing like, you know, it's not measured out or anything. Just eat. And my weight keeps more or less here. It fluctuates. Like Monday I weighed 146.6 pounds. Today I weigh 141.4 pounds. So that's a 5-pound difference in the course of 3 days. 2 days. Huge difference. You'll change soon. Not a young man anymore. Can't stay this way forever. So to that end, I start the day with just a cup of coffee. Nothing else. Before Huel, I would just skip lunch. I was not eating a lot. Kind of preparing for the inevitable. For the impending loss of metabolism. Of course, none of these things were too bad they don't do much work. My bench hasn't been going up. Oh. So some areas I guess I'm genetically predisposed to have be a little above the norm. So I'm grateful. So today was supposed to be about learning from the failure by having immediate feedback. What I discover is I still don't know enough about what to look for in failure. But I think it's a step in the right direction. Also, yuck. I need to do something to clean up these plates. The ones that we picked up. I'm gonna wash my hands. The fuck is this shit? It's like grease or something. Not coming off. got metal flake first. Or cut something out. Lick it. When in doubt, lick. Fucking A. Almost 3 o'clock. Knock this out. See, usually when people are wearing gloves and weightlifting, they're oh, I mean up here, the bar? Usually it's always the fingerless gloves. What the? I have so many scenes inside of this thing. It's getting to be a bit much. That's it for the local recording. Derpy Panda! Talk about it. I want to hand things off to my phone. Workout is over. And I think things are moving in the right direction. It's set up now so I can rapidly review. Now I just need to gain a bit of knowledge about what to look out for, and I should be able to make some progress. Lately though, it's been frustrating. Feeling stuck. Not a good feeling. So I'm gonna move things over to this device. So I can go do things. Before I switch it over, I'm gonna update these titles. Reflect post-workout. Okay, bringing it down on this, back up in a moment. Looks like we made it. Kinda said all I wanted to say. Getting stuck, feeling stagnant is frustrating. Should prompt exploration. What else can I do? To grow faster. My favorite time. Time for post-workout nutrition. And afterwards I think I'll go and harvest a vegetable. Go play farmer for a bit.
Be advised. Blender is coming on soon. You have been warned. It's coming on again. Okay, that's it. One moment, please. A shower, rain. There is some background noise here, caused by this fan. I was looking out the window to see if there was any rain still. The fan is very loud. I'm fat cat, you're killing me, man. I'll eat some real food later. No more rain. It's still cloudy. This needs to go away. I really feel like I should grab the iPad. One moment. Yeah, so I may have made some compromises recently. Or, I mean, it could be another pair of the same color underwear. No. I know the truth. And that's good enough. I don't know. I may have, a long time ago, taken a photo where I was emulating Justin Bieber in his Calvin Klein ad. Most of what I own is dark. Shades of blue, gray, black. I don't know, I think a little bit of variety is good. Well, thank you, Derpy Panda. Maybe that's what I should do. I need to figure out something. Been investing time into this manufactured spend thing, but the more I learn, the more I feel like, well, I don't know. I haven't really made any conclusions yet. It's just like with the exercise, I don't really know. There's so much I don't know yet. I'm gonna try this thing. If it fails, I'm sorry. No, you stay inside. Yeah, you wait inside. I'll be right back. It's quite chilly out there. I might lose you here. Man, something's been eating these ones up. Caterpillar or something's been fucking these guys up hard. I can see a bug in there, I think. I'm a bad farmer. I don't know which one to harvest. I'm gonna take the ugly one. I'm gonna force the bugs to show themselves. Take away their food before they get to it. Look at this, all of this fucking mulch. Look how clayey this soil is. Looks disgusting. Man. I should rinse this off out here. Jesus. This whole thing got flooded. Alright, hold up. Good boy, Paul. You're a good dog. Yeah. I know. I just don't want to see this get eaten up anymore by bugs. So I'm gonna take food before they get to it. Those bastards can grow their own if they want it. fat. Fucking terrible. The home is big. At the rate that I'm going, I won't be able to afford much of an existence at all. I need to move faster. Lately, I've been really slow. This isn't helping. Oh yeah. Let me be good and just clean up while I'm here. I have to clean more later tonight. Cleaning up a little bit. What is the Bible? By Rob Bell. What is the Bible from 2017 takes a fresh look at the best-selling book of all time, the Holy Bible. These blinks take the Bible for what it is, a conglomeration of books written by real people in real historical contexts that are at once subversive, timeless, and transformative. What's in it for me? Get a new illuminating perspective on history's most famous text. The Bible is the best-selling book in the history of literature. and one of the most read to boot. But regardless of how many people may have read it, not all have read it correctly. In fact, the unending controversy surrounding the Bible is in large part a result of critics picking and choosing passages that feel problematic or wrong, while ignoring the greater context in which the book was written, as well as the stories that it tells. Such an approach is a travesty when scrutinizing a book for which context and nuance are vital. In short, to truly appreciate, understand, and learn from the Bible, you need a sense of how it originated and existed in its own time. Delving into this history will bring you a deeper understanding of a book that can shed a light onto even the most obscure corners of life. In these blinks, you will learn how the sometimes gratuitous violence of the Bible is in the service of peace, why a literal reading of the Bible misses the point, and how the internal contradictions between stories within the Bible serve a purpose of their own. The Bible is the most popular book of all time, yet it's often misunderstood. What's your favorite book? Some like fiction, others history, but there's one book that's a bestseller across the board. In fact, it's the best-selling book ever. We're talking about the Bible, which can be found in homes and hotels around the world. But despite how common this book is, many people misunderstand its origins. For instance, many are unaware that a number of biblical stories are rooted in the historical context in which its authors were writing, and the relative minority status of its original readers. Readers also fail to realize that lots of biblical tales began as oral traditions, passed on until they were written down. Interestingly, while history is generally written in favor of those with power, the Bible is an exception to this rule. Rather than being penned by the rulers of the time, the Bible was written by Jewish people, an oppressed minority for hundreds of years. This is why the motif of liberating the exploited is so central to the book as a whole. So, why were these stories published in the first place? Originally, the ideas in the Bible were presented as a new way of viewing the world, one that gave hope to the oppressed Jews, who came to see themselves as imbued with a divine purpose. For example, in the story of Exodus, Moses leads the Jews out of Egypt. In this narrative, the implication is that the divine force is on the side of the oppressed people, and that slavery can be ended. For readers at that time, this idea was absolutely revolutionary. Later in the book, the reader discovers that when Moses died, he still had his vigor. The implication here is that Moses retained his sexual potency until his death. But why does Moses' libido matter? Well, metaphorically speaking, the idea that's communicated is that in order to break a cycle of oppression, you have to pass your freedom onto your offspring. The stories of the Bible are ones of progress and change. Anyone who has ever seen the book knows that the Bible is a rather dense tome, and its writing is no less epic. This book is full of stories, poems, letters, accounts, and gospels, all of which were written down, collected, and edited by some 40 people over a period of 1,500 years. However, while the Bible, which is essentially a library of other books, may be complex, it also has a clear common thread. It describes a historical shift in the way people considered both the world and the divine. For example, a contemporary reader might be surprised by certain biblical passages, such as when God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son. But for the book's original readers, such an action was considered a common offering to other gods. So for people who lived at the time of the story's writing, when God finally intervenes, preventing Abraham from taking his son's life and agreeing to the sacrifice of a ram instead, the effect is actually a subversion of expectations. For these early readers, the picture that was painted was of a new God, one that wouldn't request such a brutal offering. It's one example of how the ideas introduced in the Bible were, and still are, extremely progressive. Just consider Genesis, in which God names Abraham father of the Jewish tribe. which would bless all others. At the time, tribes were only concerned with their own, and the idea of a tribe that cared for others was groundbreaking. So the following episode was especially important. In the opening pages of the Bible, Abraham is blessed by King Melchizedek of Salem in the name of God. Abraham gives Melchizedek 1/10 of everything and they part ways. Why is this important? What's being said here? Well, the Bible explains that Melchizedek isn't part of Abraham's tribe, and he's still connected to the divine, since he blesses Abraham as such. In other words, the implication is that God is larger than any one tribe, and people outside of religious institutions can show righteousness. The Bible reflects humanity while pointing to the divine. Since real people wrote the Bible in response to real situations, the book is a compelling reflection of humanity. But within this humanity, readers can also find a much more believable picture of the divine. In fact, the Bible is so human that it can be of service even to non-Christians. Just take one famous biblical parable in which the older of two brothers works hard to earn his father's praise, while the other squanders the money he inherits from his father's estate. The younger brother eventually returns home destitute and begging for his father's forgiveness. In response, despite the older brother's demands to ignore his sibling, the father accepts the prodigal son openly, who then recognizes that his home is with his family. The lesson is a simple and universal one about the importance of forgiveness in the concept of home as a state of being, not a physical location. This is just one example of how the Bible's humanity makes it accessible. But it's also through this humanity, especially human error, that evidence of the divine can be found. The inconsistencies in the Bible point to a human tendency to mix up accounts of real events. Yet the similarities that connect these stories highlight the evidence behind them. Just consider the different accounts in the Gospels of Jesus' resurrection. In the account given by Mark, Mary Magdalene, Salome, and Mary, the mother of James, all traveled to Jesus' tomb and discovered he had risen from the dead. In John's story, only Mary Magdalene went. Matthew says it was Mary Magdalene as well as the other Mary. And Luke simply describes Jesus as walking with two of his disciples. You could take this as evidence that the book doesn't have its story straight, or that it confirms the Bible's proneness to factual error. This seems reasonable until you consider that when the Bible was written, the words of women had no legal bearing. In such a climate, why would anyone say that women first witnessed the resurrection of Christ? In this way, the simple detail about women discovering Jesus underlines the truth of the account. Biblical violence illustrates progress toward peace. Lots of people consider the Bible a violent and barbaric tale. They may be right, but such an assessment has to be put into context. For instance, the Old Testament was first compiled in Babylon around the year 500 BC, at a time when the Babylonians were forcibly removing the Israelites from Jerusalem and sending them into exile. This implies that the authors of the Bible suffered atrocious acts of violence, which played a central role in shaping their view of the world, both present and future. Nonetheless, the Bible tracks a gradual shift away from violence and towards a more peaceful vision for the world. Just take the book of 1 Kings, in which Solomon utilizes slave labor and a military to expand his empire. This story establishes a narrative of greed and the quest for power. Later in the book, the authors condemn violence over and over again. For instance, in the book of Judges, God sends Ehud to rescue the Israelites from Moabite oppression. In doing so, Ehud uses violence and nothing is solved. In the beginning of the next chapter, the Israelites are oppressed once again. Through such narratives, the Bible ultimately shows that senseless violence will never solve anything. Rather, kindness and forgiveness are the tools necessary to experience the love of God. That being said, many still misunderstand God as being full of wrath rather than love. For example, some people read Paul's letter to the Romans and assume that God will rain down fury upon those who reject him. This is reasonable, since the passage asks, what if God chose to demonstrate his destructive power, but was careful not to destroy the people he created without justification? But if you read carefully, you'll see that a vengeful God is not what's being communicated here. More explanation can be found in chapter 11, which asks the question, did God reject God's people? The answer is an affirmative, by no means. In other words, the Bible invites the reader to set out on a path toward God, but the reader may choose to take it or not. The Bible is rife with contradiction, representing the differing views of its authors in the contexts in which they wrote. People commonly complain that the Bible contradicts itself, and they're right. In fact, that's the point. To take in such complexity, the Bible must be approached as a perpetually developing narrative. For instance, in 2 Samuel 24, God tells David to take a census. But in Chronicles, which was written hundreds of years later, Satan is said to have told David to take the census. At the time, a census was used to assess the size of an army in preparation for war, so taking a census would stand in stark contrast to the peaceful approach of this new tribe of God. It represented the old approach of building empires and sowing terror. So why was the account of who ordered the census changed? Well, people who lived at the time of the writing of Samuel saw gods as necessarily violent. However, as their thinking became more sophisticated, they came to see that a benevolent God would never ask David to do an evil thing. So, in the end, it had to be an opposing force, one representing evil, that made this request. Interestingly, this passage in the Chronicles is the first biblical mention of Satan whatsoever. This force of evil was itself a concept developed over time. It's one of the many ways the Bible changed and contradicted itself as it developed. And this fluidity is only to be expected, since the authors didn't necessarily agree on everything. For example, in Genesis, the first book of the Bible, God tells Abraham that every man in his tribe must be circumcised to show their commitment to the Lord. But close to the end of the Bible, in a letter from Paul to the Galatians, the author likens this very process to enslavement. To add further complexity, in this exposition, Paul's issue isn't with circumcision itself, but with using it to alienate people from the population. And what makes these incongruities even more confusing is that, because of the vast expanse of time between the writing of each statement, the two can't be directly compared. They're the products of different people writing in different contexts. A literal reading of the Bible leaves much to be desired. Many people view the Bible with cynicism. They wonder how people can believe such myths and fairy tales. It's also quite common for people to assume that one discredited biblical story invalidates all others in the book, mythical or otherwise. The problem with such stances is that they ignore the way these stories have been told. As a result, they cause people to read the Bible in an intensely literal manner, missing the entire point of the book. A better approach is to read the use of magic and myth in the Bible as poetic rather than literal, for it instead takes a boat in the opposite direction. When a storm brews, the crew turns on Jonah, accusing him of causing the bad weather and throwing him overboard. Jonah is in turn swallowed by a fish, in whose stomach he prays for 3 days. In the end, the Lord commands the fish to vomit Jonah up on land, and he finally goes to Nineveh, where he finds the Assyrian people extremely receptive to God's message. Naturally, this whole account is entirely unbelievable, but the fact of whether Jonah was literally swallowed whole isn't what matters. The story has a meaning much larger than this literal content. It begs the question, can Israel forgive the Assyrians? In answering this matter, it confirms that God's followers are loved by all, including their enemies. By viewing such a story through a literal lens, a reader could easily miss all of the profound learning buried within it. But challenging yourself to view things more poetically isn't the only way you can get more out of the Bible. In the next blinks, you'll learn a few more approaches which begin with an early star of this holy book. We can learn much more from the Bible by studying it with curiosity. When people approached Jesus asking him about the Old Testament, he responded by asking them a question of his own. He wanted to know how they interpreted it. Similarly, we can ask ourselves questions about the Bible that lead us to more substantial understandings. For instance, rather than asking, "Why would God?" we can ask why the authors thought the story was important enough to write down. A good example here are creation stories, which were and continue to be important for making sense of humanity's place in the world. Just take the Babylonian creation story, in which the god Mernach tears in half the carcass of the goddess Tiamat and uses the two halves to compose the world. By contrast, in the Bible's creation story, God produces the world from divine joy. So, why did the authors think this was important enough to write down? Well, compared to the previous creation myth, it offered an alternative, non-violent conception of divinity and what it means to be human. Another helpful question when considering the Bible is why a particular passage has endured the test of time. Just take the story of Babel, in which the people build a tower high enough to reach heaven, turning the ruler of Babel into a god and allowing him to abuse his power. Reading the Bible more closely in its different translations shows that the people of Babel accomplished this feat using brick and stone, new technologies for the time. This latter point is important as, in the end, God decides that the people of Babel should not be allowed to succeed in their overly ambitious, power-hungry endeavor. So he confuses their languages such that they cannot understand one another. In ending this way, the story reminds the reader that humans must keep power and technology under control. We have much to take from this lesson today. It's the same principle at play when contemporary people say that Wall Street has too much power. The Bible is a reflection of growing and expanding human consciousness. The Bible can have transformative power if we embrace it for what it is. By now, you know a great deal about the Bible, but how else can its teachings be utilized today? Well, this holy book clearly has the power to change human perceptions of the world, and its teachings can just as easily be applied to contemporary life. For instance, a constant theme in the Bible is the apocalypse, which emerges in different forms. A good example is the story of God launching a world-engulfing flood to cleanse the mess that humans have made of the planet. In the end, only Noah and his family escape. But why were such stories written? In general, they came out of a basic human fear that life could end in the blink of an eye. However, while such a possibility can't be controlled, people can control how they behave on Earth and uphold the divine responsibility to care for the planet. At present, this responsibility is being skirted, such as through humans' abuse of fossil fuels, the pollution of natural resources, and the use of toxic chemicals. But what if all the human anxiety about the end of the world could be redirected toward preventing climate change? By embracing biblical teachings and questioning them with curiosity in our hearts, we can begin to see such ancient stories as perfectly relevant to the present day. In fact, the Bible even has the potential to change our hearts, that is, if we're willing to let it. Just take Matthew's account of the resurrection story. In it, he says that when Jesus met with his followers in Galilee, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Why would the authors include this? Doesn't it undermine the narrative? When reading the Bible, asking such questions forces us to confront ourselves and consider profound issues of our existence. How open are our minds? What would happen if we lived as if Jesus had in fact been resurrected? By putting our skepticism aside, we can embrace the stories of the Bible as great works of poetry. as tales of humanity that can transform our lives. A final summary. The key message in this book, the Bible, the most popular book of all time, is in fact a collection of books that, on the one hand, depict violence and greed, but on the other hand also advance an overarching story of progress. By considering the historic situations in which real people wrote those stories, we can see the Bible through fresh eyes and apply it to our lives today. Actionable advice. Use a biblical mantra to expand your mind. Throughout your day, repeat the mantra from 1 Corinthians 3. All things are yours. Write this saying down on your hand or somewhere that makes it readily available, and repeat it when you encounter something inspirational. As you welcome this mantra into your life and your heart, see if it can open your mind to the world around you. Have you missed anything beautiful in your daily life that you now notice? Suggested further reading, The Reason for God by Timothy Keller. In The Reason for God, famous New York pastor Timothy Keller defends Christianity and its core beliefs against the most common objections. His fresh approach provides several arguments for continued Christian faith. I think the broadcast died midway through that. Interesting. one last. Oh, I already copied it. It's just an interesting read, you know? I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's pretty basic. A lot of I visited Qatar, and my friend suggested I go take a look at this Fanar. It's this center where folks can learn about Islam. And they had these big old posters on the walls of this hall. And it talks about evidence in the Quran that's backed up by science today, or, you know, like how the Quran, well before science, knew a lot. No. No. I've consumed things like Religulous, which I found to be quite interesting. I recommended it to my friend. A Letter to a Christian Nation. Mr. Alberto, why are you squatting 15 reps? Also, I want to sneeze. Better. For beginners, my understanding is both strong lifts and starting strength are good. They'll have you do 5 sets of 5. And every time you get your 5 sets of 5 done, you add more weight. So you can push up the weight pretty quickly. So at first, for a good while, you just experience straight line growth. And it'll get progressively more challenging. And eventually, who knows when, you'll end up getting stuck on some challenge. I would recommend looking into both of the programs. Again, here, I can type it for you. There's so much information out there. I'm trying to get a little more serious about it myself, so that I'm not necessarily maximizing, but at least getting some value out of the time that I devote to it. But they recommend compound movements. And then, I don't know what the path forward is from there. It's somewhere out there. Many ways to go about it. Thank you. Thank you for the follow. These are programs. These are full-on programs. They revolve around compound movements. I guess it's more important to ask, hey look, there's a Pikachu. It showed up this time. That's so cute. Look at it. I guess it's more important to ask what your goals are as you approach this. I think both of these will suit you well. That and paying some attention to how your weight trends over time. You don't have to go the full 9 yards in 3 months. Okay. So, to give you a little context, where I'm coming from, and maybe what's next. I should actually just include this. I keep forgetting to throw this inside of the info panel. Publish chart. But you're welcome to reference this. These are my own numbers through this most recent sprint, you could call it. So 3 months. Started June 26, 2017, and you take us out to the last data point before a slight break. Like I skipped an entire month. You'll have to whisper me links and just let me, I should be able to see it inside of this window when that happens. But say the squat, for instance, I started 45 pounds and then, a couple of months in, going to 190, and that's for 5 sets of 5. You'll see a lot of straight line growth. That's what you can expect as a beginner. The path forward is not too clear. In both of the programs, they have some prescriptions for what you do when it gets tough. But hopefully that's of some help. You could try it. You could try it. I mean, for some time I did that for the curls. And it's reflected in the chart that I linked you. But those you'll plateau out earlier. I know strong lifts at least provide some additional suggestions. I'm doing the lifts as indicated here. Those are squat, bench, overhead press, deadlift, pull-ups, And that's it. Recently I also added these side lateral raises at the end of the exercise. I should shower. Of course I can't broadcast that, but let me move this. What I look like today. Weighing around 140 odd pounds. Three times a week if I'm good. And like active gym time sessions are about 2 hours. But if you start with, you know, the empty bar or wherever you're at first it's pretty quick. You can move pretty quickly. It won't take 6 hours a week, it'll take less. Oh yeah, I've got to get rid of these things. They're just like sitting. I've got this stuff, I need to free up the money. It's funny money right now. There's something called, I think it's like gift card ready. Not every time deadlifts, no. No. Again, I urge you to take a look. You'll see the program there. If you just look strong lifts or starting strength, you'll see. Okay, I mean, I can speak for strong lifts, at least. It's just A and B. That's it. So on one day, there's deadlift. Every day, there's squats. Recommended volume is 3 times a week. So 1 week you'll deadlift twice, and the other week you'll deadlift a single time. Yuck. Today was session number 77. I'm gonna guess you're on mobile. Yeah. pool is huge. Okay, thank you. Fuck, these are not good. I end up losing money. I'm not trying to lose my shirt doing this. Clearly, I have a lot to learn. Okay, I'm gonna bring this down so I can go shower and feel human. Maybe clean up around here a little bit. Take care for now.